dear ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much for this last-minute invitation to speak at this very important conference on behalf of the International Coalition Against Electronic Torture and Robotization of Living Beings. My name is Melanie Vritschan. I'm a German national, and I've been president of our association since 2016, the year of its foundation. The context for the creation of this not-for-profit association is as follows. An alarming rate of citizens around the world complains about subcutaneous electronic experiments without their consent, whether in the context of medical research, scientific experiments, to obtain information, or just for criminal purposes. The number of people complaining of this crime is increasing exponentially, and in all countries, and the physical and psychological symptoms they express are the same everywhere. Radio frequency controlled electronic miniature implants in humans is not a new phenomenon. It's been well documented since the early 1960s. The abuse of this technology without consent is a serious violation of the Hippocratic Oath, the Nuremberg Code, and the fundamental human rights of the European Union and the UN, and furthermore, the constitutions of most Western countries. In the United States, several cases of these non-consensual implants have been documented, such as the cases of David Larson and the inventors Bob Boyce and James Walbert. As far as I'm concerned, after having co-founded in 2011 the International Center Against Abuse of Covered Technologies, with doctors and engineers based in the United States and in Denmark, and in 2013, the European Coalition Against Covered Harassment, registered by the German-Swedish lawyer Dr. Henning Witte in Stockholm, I was then approached by various victims living here in Brussels who wanted me to create an association in Belgium for the defense of victims and assume its presidency. Thus, EATO was created on the 1st of April 2016, by 6 full members, 5 residents in Belgium and 1 in France. Our association promotes the total prohibition and abolition of the use of technologies or weapons using invisible and/or imperceptible methods without the consent of the persons concerned. Our goals. We demand that the practices of gang stalking or organized stalking, which often precede or go in hand with torture and/or manipulation by direct-to-energy weapons, be condemned. Over the past decade, I have spoken to thousands of victims around the world who have complained of exposure and experimentation with electromagnetic weapons. This includes, but is not limited to, mood alterations, heart palpitation, involuntary body movements, headaches, seizures, dizziness, nausea, vision disturbances, skin burns, loss of balance, non-consensual microchipping by medical implants, nano and neurotechnologies, neurocognitive disturbances, such as short-time memory loss and brain damage. All of these disorders are now grouped together under the term Havana syndrome, after American and Canadian diplomats, military personnel, and intelligence agents were attacked by pulsed and directed microwave energy in various countries around the world, starting with Havana, Cuba. To provide our members with scientific evidence of their implantation that allows them to be manipulated remotely, we also organize radio frequency scanning sessions with specific equipment to detect RFID chips, nanomaterial, biomedical parts, or technology of this type introduced into their bodies without their consent. These measurements are usually organized in a protected environment, a Faraday cage, of a research institute or by private investigators with whom we collaborate. EATO is the organization that brings together various national associations. Among them, the main ones are VIAC, Victims of Electronic Mind Control and Harassment in Spain, Initiative gegen elektromagnetische Folter in Germany, Schutzschild in Germany, People Against Covert Torture and Surveillance International Pacts in the United States, Targeted Justice in the United States, StopZ, Stop Organized Electronic Torture in Poland, Moscow Housing Ecology Committee in Russia, Covert Energy Torture in India, Technology Crime Victims Network in Japan, and many more. The contact details of these associations can be found on the EATO website, eato.be, in the international group section. We also work in close collaboration with the Belgian Lawyers and Citizens' Rights Association Droit et Liberté, Rights and Freedoms, the French-speaking pair Dr. Paolo Crescenzo and Dr. Brigitte Bonfilio are DNL's list heads currently running for the European Parliament elections. Since the United Nations Human Rights Council held in Geneva in 2020, where the subject of cyber torture was discussed at length, and to which two of our closest associates and members, the lawyer Dr. Henning Witte and the director of the European Coalition Against Covert Harassment, Mr. Magnus Olsen, had been invited, nominated as freelance editors by the online publication of technology and alternative medicine, Alma Nova, to edit a special edition dedicated to covering this historic 43rd session. We are working closely with the UN. Professor Nils Melzer, UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, had asked NGOs in 2019 to submit their applications for consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. Thousands of applications are reviewed once a year by the NGO committee. 3 calls for papers on cyber torture were launched by 2 UN special rapporteurs. Professor Nils Melzer has issued 2 calls, and Professor Joseph A. Kanatachi 1 call. We have contributed to all. Each time our statements have been accepted and published on the UN website. As Professor Melzer states in the report of the UN General Assembly issued on 20th of March 2020, criminal implanted medical devices such as neuro and nanotechnology are used as receivers and enablers to perform non-touch torture for voyeuristic clients. Following this report, a UN investigation was launched that seems to be progressing very slowly, although the new UN rapporteur on torture, Dr. Alice Jill Edwards, has since then issued a new call focusing specifically on the abuse of neurotechnology, using citizens as guinea pigs to develop AI, and the need to guarantee neuro rights to all citizens and to follow the Chilean government's example. Being particularly sensitive to the abuse of these technologies on particularly vulnerable targets, such as young children and single women, often single mothers, I had therefore personally responded to the call for papers, A Better Understanding of Children's Right to Privacy, launched by Mr. Joseph A. Kanatachi, Special Rapporteur on the Right to Privacy. My contribution has been accepted, and my name is therefore on the page of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. More recently, EATO has been involved in an initiative at the regional level here in Brussels. We responded to the public inquiry into the draft regional plan on the electromagnetic environment in Brussels to strongly oppose a further reduction in the level of protection requested by the operators. We demanded the enforcement of the framework law drafted by one of EATO's experts, the Belgian physicist Dr. Daniel Depree, and passed by the Belgian Parliament and Senate on 12th of July 1985 and published in the Monitor Belge on 26 November 1985. We requested the Brussels region to be vigilant when creating the legislative framework from a technical point of view. The health and environment risks posed by the deployment of 5G, in particular for zygotes and fetuses, children, and pregnant women, should be taken into specific consideration. Following EATO's response to the Radiation and Technologies Department of Brussels Environment, we organized a large international gathering in front of the European Parliament, bringing together numerous of our national partner organizations. The promotion of our event, successfully held on 10th of June 2023, was carried out by the Lawyers Association and Citizens' Rights Movement, Droit et Liberté, Rights and Freedoms. Following the gathering, I was contacted by the South African lawyer, Ms. Shabnaan Palisa Mohammed. She is the Children's Health Defense Executive Director for Africa and a CHD television producer and host. Since then, several interviews have been carried out with Children's Health Defense TV, and a collaboration has been initiated with the European branch of Children's Health Defense Movement. EATO's ultimate goal is to protect all citizens and their physical integrity. Faced with the rapid expansion of neurotechnologies, it is a question of guaranteeing the fundamental rights of the population. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Okay, I'm a colleague of Melanie's. My name is Ali. I am the UK board member and representative to EATO, and I'm just going to share some experiences with you here today. So basically, I travelled to Belgium at the start of my situation to meet with Melanie, to be scanned inside of a Faraday cage at a university EATO were working with at the time. I help with arranging other scanning events for members, meetings, liaising with our expert advisors. Amy Holden, who has just spoken, is one of them, maintaining the website, memberships, and more. I am a victim myself of electronic harassment, which is now more commonly referred to as Havana syndrome. I started having symptoms and experiences a few years ago now, and I do not know why. It's become like normal life, but I have been able to collect some evidence over the last few years, which has certainly shed light on some aspects of this. So I studied music technology, recording engineering and production at college and at university. So as a person who's familiar with working with audio, I was at the start of my situation able to conduct some very simple experiments to rule in and or out the few explanations as to my symptoms, how they were being induced without anybody near me, and continuing wherever I went for. So I did some networking and researching, discovered the news about Havana syndrome, and met my colleague Melanie and Amy Holden here as well. I also spoke with a gentleman named Barry Trower. Barry Trower is a doctor, a physicist, a weapons expert, and is an ex-MI5 agent. He explained to me what was happening, helped me to remain calm. So EATO now work with Mr. Barry Trower. He's our head technical and legal advisor. He has been taking on cases such as these in the legal domain for the past 20, 25 years. He is at this time working on a separate case regarding the dangers of 5G and Wi-Fi. This case is being headed by Mr. Michael Mansfield. He is of the King's Council. If you're not sure who he is, he's famous for the Birmingham 6 IRA bombing case, which was in, I believe, the 80s here in the United Kingdom. So a person going through this, their health can severely suffer as a result. My health over the last 3 years has rapidly declined. I have now been diagnosed with 4 autoimmune disorders, so Raynaud's, scleroderma, Meniere's disease, and vasculitis, as well as vestibular disorder and cerebral ataxia, which is a form of brain damage. These do seem to have just appeared out of nowhere. I went private for most of my tests, fearing talking to my normal GP on the NHS. This basically meant that not many questions were asked, and I could simply hand my GP then some reports and results. I was then asked if I'd like to take part in an NHS study regarding autoimmune disorders, which I said yes to. So I am receiving now excellent healthcare. I'm due to be put on a course of immune suppressants. I'm already on a ridiculous concoction with the medications to help me with these new health issues. This study has been great for me as a person going through this. They do not know the full extent of my situation, but they have basically told me that I have a ridiculously high amount of antibodies present in my blood, meaning that these are strongly present there. But for somebody with this level in their blood, they would expect to see physical manifestations of this, in particular with the scleroderma and my skin, but there isn't any. So they have actually said to me on a few occasions, they're not sure what to do with me. The symptoms that come with this are wide and varied. So I'm experiencing extreme tinnitus, which is clearly synthesized. It's not at all natural. Headaches, dizziness, blurred vision, nausea, sleep deprivation as a result of this, induced physical symptoms, and much, much more. As I said, we do work with Amy Holam of Amy's Audios, who's just spoken before us. She is ex-military and, as she said, a digital forensics expert offering a wide range of services. So I went to her and had one of her audio analysis reports conducted using some audio that I had recorded. The recording that I initially sent her is silent. It's me sat in silence, and then I just sent it to her. Silent meaning that there are no competing sounds in the audio. It makes her job a lot easier. So we found out a lot about my situation, who, what, when, where, and why. In my report, I learned that I am being followed. Drones are in operation with mounted cameras. The people present in these chat rooms are discussing being able to see me at the time of the recording in real time, as they are discussing my activities at the time of the recording. They're discussing various weapon systems and technologies, hacking my devices. They're discussing plans of acts of sabotage against me. And I can state that there are a few on-duty army personnel speaking there as well. One thing that we were able to capture in this audio analysis is the hacking into my electricity meter. I had received a bill from my energy company 1 month in 2022 of over £3,000 for about 18 days worth of electricity. Now, I do know that lots of people will experience issues with their energy providers, but what Amy was able to capture is that my, let's say, suspects are utilizing DC bias. So this is the hum from the nearest electricity grid, which I believe here in the UK is around 50 hertz. They're utilizing this as well using a device called a scripter, which allows them access to the transistor, so allowing them the ability to increase or decrease voltages, therefore increasing my energy bill as an act of sabotage. They were able to single out my meter in a building with over 400 apartments, so another 400 meters just to do this to me. And it was great that she was able to capture this. So yeah, I mean, going through this is horrific. I do feel privileged to be helping Amy and EATO. The type of harassment, it can happen to a person for a multitude of different reasons. It could be simple revenge, people with connections. It could be somebody who's a whistleblower and is speaking out about this, and then they are singled out. There have now been over 2,000 cases of USA and Canadian officials, diplomats and the like inflicted with Havana syndrome. The national academies in the United States have acknowledged this and that it is also happening to civilians. However, as of recent, in the last few weeks in the news, the media have pushed a new narrative, basically saying that those diplomats, their injuries have not been long-term. But it's still being suppressed, and we have a long way to go. It's a perfectly well-oiled machine and includes the illegal surveillance, hacking, live streaming, breaking and entering, sabotage acts, wrongful mental health diagnosis, online trafficking, assault, psychological torture. The list of crimes goes on and on. In the most basic way of saying this, a person's brain or central nervous system or both is being utilized with the use of satellites, drones, cell towers, and a person's own devices. So basically, any physical symptom can be induced as have the diplomats reported that this has continued anywhere on the globe with pinpoint precision. So in using basic common sense, we can see just how huge this is. Telecommunications companies, internet providers, technology manufacturers, and so on are implicit to an extent. EATO are forming all of these very important partnerships in effort to shed more light on the scope of the matter, and for our efforts with an international class action lawsuit we're underway with our legal representatives that Melanie Vritschan just shared with you. So what I'll do is I will leave it there, and we will just thank the organisers and the guests for their time and the opportunity. Me and my colleague Melanie can open up for any questions any of you may have.